Well, here we are, guys. I can finally talk to you as somebody who has officially played and completed Metroid Dread for the first time. And it barely feels real because I just completed the game probably less than 2 hours ago. And I debated on how long I was going to take myself to want to get on camera and discuss the game, review the game, and just kind of really dive deep. Maybe I needed some time to sit on it for a couple of days. Maybe I just wanted to empty my brain of thoughts right away. And I've pretty much decided to do just that. Been about 2 hours. I've got tons to say. It feels so weird to be on the other side of the end credits of this game. But it's very exciting, and it's very cool, and I am overwhelmed, and my brain is just in pieces right now trying to comprehend the epicness of what I just saw happen. Obviously, this video and this review and my thoughts and discussion on Metroid Dread as a completed game is a pretty big deal. It's a big deal first and foremost just to myself as a fan of this franchise and somebody who is so crazy excited to play this game. And it's a big deal for, honestly, my YouTube channel and just myself as a YouTuber. Because I'm kind of known for being a Metroid guy, and I'm very proud of that fact that my personal fanship became something known to, like, you know, a small but somewhat sizable audience and a lot of you guys. And I've heard a lot of people talking to me in the comments of my older Metroid videos and on Twitter about, Rob, where are you? Metroid Dread has been out for a couple of days and you've gone completely silent and we haven't heard anything from you, even though I have been tweeting about it a little bit here and there. And everyone's like, where's your videos? I thought you'd be the first person out with all of this stuff. And to be honest with you guys, you know, a little bit of house cleaning here. I was playing the game. I mean, the first thing I did when the game released was I stopped making YouTube videos. I stopped coming into this room with these lights and this microphone and this camera to talk about games and Metroid Dread because I had Metroid Dread. It's right here. I was playing it. I didn't care about YouTube and views and sub counts at all. I just needed to soak in that experience. Now that it's done and I have all these thoughts, now I'm on camera and I am ready to talk to you guys about this game. Of course, before we finally, after months and years and almost 2 decades of waiting, jump into the review of Metroid 5, otherwise known as Metroid Dread, I do like to remind you guys that I am always trying to grow the channel here on Rule of 2 Review. I cover all things Nintendo, I obviously cover all things Metroid, and I discuss all things gaming. So as you watch this video, if you seem to like what I'm doing and what you hear, then I hope you will consider subscribing to the channel. So I've debated with myself how I wanted to approach this video and how I wanted to talk about spoilers and things like that. So I think what I've decided to do is, in the video title, it's going to say that this is no spoilers and it's a non-spoiler review. But I think what I've decided to do is to mostly discuss it without spoilers in the beginning, but there will come a point in the video where I will honestly have to just open up the floodgates and let loose to you guys about some of the things in this game, mostly the end, mostly how the game wraps up in the end. And there will be future videos that dive deeper into that because it's so fresh in my brain and it's a lot of stuff and I'm bursting at the seams with thoughts about it all. And so I won't go crazy deep into the bigger implications of the ending, but I will be discussing it a little bit at the end. I will let you know before I start talking spoilers, but initially, I'll try to just talk about it in more broad concepts without spoiling some of that kind of stuff for you guys. So, Metroid Dread, you guys, I'm just going to cut right to the chase now that it's been a couple of minutes in this video. I loved this game. Are you surprised? No, of course you're not surprised. Either because you just know I'm a super huge Metroid fan who's been crazy excited for this game, or because you yourself have already played it, maybe you've even completed it, and you know how amazing this whole adventure is and everything that Mercury Steam and Nintendo achieved with Metroid Dread. If I'm being real with you guys, you know, I've got a little bit of my rose-colored Metroid fanboy glasses on here, and I'm only going to be honest with you guys about that. To me, this is the game that we've waited 19 years for. And what I'm so happy to report is that, based on this game from beginning to end, I personally think this game was worth the 19-year wait. Of course, it should be noted that when I say the game is worth the 19-year wait, it's not that there hasn't been other Metroid games to play in between, Metroid Fusion and Metroid Dread, and I think that that's an important thing to talk about. But if we remove all of those other Metroid games that released in that time period, that 19 years between these games, I think just in terms of Metroid Fusion being the amazing game it was, being Metroid 4, and then the rumors about Metroid Dread in the late 2000s, it never came to fruition, and then it comes back and we see Metroid 5 does exist. We're finally going to step further in the timeline after Fusion. As far as, the franchise sort of making us fans wait 19 years to see what happens after Fusion, in that bubble, in that context, I think this game and its story and its gameplay and its graphics and everything Samus was worth the 19-year wait. And I wasn't quite sure if I was going to be able to say that. I mean, I knew I was going to love the game because I'm a sucker and a fanboy, and I don't mind wearing that part of my fanship on my sleeve. So I was like, yeah, this game is going to be amazing. I know I'm going to love it. But by the time it all wrapped up, it's like, yeah, 19 years, that seems like no sweat by comparison now that the game is done. I guess the first thing that's worth talking about are really just some of the mechanical aspects of the game. And I mean, like a lot of people have already shared in their reviews and their sentiments. Reminder, I did not get or pursue a review copy. I waited until launch day to play this game. And so a lot of people had already finished and reviewed it at this point. And I'm going to agree with a lot of the sentiments here. The gameplay is obscenely smooth and so fun. And Samus is insanely acrobatic, more acrobatic than she's ever been. And to be fair, there are some previous Metroid games that I think were planting seeds for her to become a faster moving, more nimble, and more acrobatic version of herself than we'd ever seen. In my opinion, that started with Other M. Mercury Steam picked up that mantle and continued it with Samus Returns. And here in Metroid Dread, they've basically amped that up to 11 and made Samus more of a nimble, ass-kicking badass than we've ever seen in any game. And it feels like a dream to play. I think one of my favorite parts of many about Metroid Dread, as far as a gameplay perspective, is just how many new moves and abilities and upgrades were added to Samus's arsenal in this game. And to me, because the Metroid franchise has always been a gameplay-focused franchise, even though I love the story and the chronology like you guys know, I think that the best way to improve and evolve a Metroid game from game to game is to do exactly that. Give Samus more to do, give her more abilities, more controls, and give her new weapons, powers, and upgrades that we've never seen. And in this game, they probably have the biggest list of new abilities we've ever seen, and it blows my mind how well Mercury Steam both created those abilities and then implemented them into the gameplay. Obviously, if I'm going to try to keep some of this stuff spoiler-free, and, I don't want to list off every single new ability or weapon or whatnot, there are some of the basics that a lot of us know. The ability to slide is fantastic. They use it to great effect, by the way, especially once you get the Morph Ball or the Speed Boost. Like, they combine those three abilities in a very cool way, and in many ways, it's linked together by the addition of her slide. So that was so cool and so smart of Mercury Steam to do. Of course, the melee counter that Mercury Steam implemented in Samus Returns come back, but they also gave her the ability to do like a running version, which does more damage, and there are even some enemies that when that enemy requires you to counter, really the only way to successfully counter is to do the forward kind of jumping melee thing. And I thought that was really cool too, that they made it more than just something that looks cool. It actually had a practical use for a select amount of enemies in the game. And that was a ton of fun. Some adjustments like the cross bomb when you're in Morph Ball is a cool new addition. Ice missiles return from other games, but they're used in a unique way here. The Storm Missile was shown in some of the trailers and the promos. Very cool, used to great effect, both for puzzle solving and for some enemies and bosses. And to be fair, the Storm Missile isn't like entirely new as a concept. There were the Seeker missiles that were introduced in Metroid Prime 2 and Prime 3. But the Storm Missile is a little bit unique in a couple of ways that I think makes it feel like kind of the same upgrade, but to a different degree. So it feels kind of new the way they do it in the 2D space in Metroid Dread. You've got the magnetic wall climb, and you've got the Phantom Cloak, and you have a couple of other really cool things, you guys, and I won't list off any more here. But I will just say that the arsenal and the moveset that they gave Samus in this game was great. On top of the fact that she's fast, nimble, and acrobatic, like I said, It's just the best controlling and feeling and playing version of Samus we've seen yet. And when you combine that with the fantastic level and world design, it just makes this game a dream to play. It also looks fantastically beautiful. It runs super smooth, except for coming in and out of a couple of cutscene moments here and there. Very slight stuttering in some of those moments, but that's not during gameplay, so it doesn't truly matter, and most cutscenes are fine anyway. Like, sometimes she walks to and from a save point, you know, into the background and the foreground. You'll get a little bit of stuttering. But every time you are in control of Samus, perfect, silky, buttery smooth. Samus rocks in this game. So much fun to play. Now, another one of my favorite elements that I did also tweet about over the weekend is the map and the map design itself, you know. We're going to planet ZDR. We're trying to hunt down these Emmy robots that were sent down there to extract X-Parasite stuff, and they went rogue and missing, and Samus goes to figure it out. So we're on a brand new planet with brand new locations we've never been to or seen before in the franchise. And I think that as far as just the map design, not so much looking at the map, because I think that's different, but as far as just how the world is laid out and how you traverse it and solve its puzzles, just mwah, chef's kiss. Perfect for 2D Metroid. Exactly. Just exactly what I could have wanted it to be. And when I tweeted about it, I likened the scope of the layout and the complexity of the map to something more like Super Metroid, or also Samus Returns, that of course Mercury Steam also developed. Because Super Metroid is a very labyrinthian, kind of complex, tangled weaving web of a world map to go in and out of, and the way you move back and forth and you find your secrets and you find your tunnels and all this stuff. I mean, every 2D Metroid game has that to a degree, but Super Metroid, up until Dread, took that idea the farthest, and they did it the best, and again, in the most complex way. In the good sense of the word complex, they did it in the most complex way. To me, Dread is like on even ground, I think, with that. It's got more modern gameplay mechanics, so you know, if you're not paying attention, you might think it's better or worse or whatever. To me, I think that they're about even, but putting the world map design in the same conversation as Super Metroid means you're in pretty damn good company, I feel. So you look at the world map in Super Metroid and the world map in Metroid Dread, they are like 10 out of 10 from a 2D Metroid game design. Just incredible. We then come to one of, if not the most important aspect to talk about here, and it is the Emmy robots, which not only feature into the gameplay and the core hook and mechanic of the game, but also the map design. And, you know, a lot was made about the Emmy going into it, and a lot of people talking about how scary and difficult they were. And yeah, I'm going to agree. I think as far as delivering on the Dread concept and the Emmy concept, Mercury Steam also knocked this out of the park. I am so happy to report that the Emmy robots are truly freaking terrifying. There's something about avoiding being spotted by them, and then how you feel once the chase itself is actually on. It is crazy exhilarating, and it is scary, not like in a horror movie jump scare kind of way, just in the way of, can I possibly survive? And of course, the Emmy robots have this really cool mechanic where, you know, just like the regular counter you use within the game, Metroid Dread or Samus Returns, you actually have a small, very, very tiny window that you can use that counter to escape from an Emmy once it grabs you. It's either certain one-hit death, or you get that super tiny microscopic window to use the counter and escape. And they use that to great effect, and it becomes something you can get pretty good at pulling off. But what's great about the design is no matter how good you get at pulling it off, you're still going to fail more often than you succeed. So the dread and the tension of being chased by an Emmy robot never truly goes away. On top of the fact, without spoiling, I will say each Emmy has different abilities and gives you different powers, and they have different levels of challenge based on what they're capable of doing. And so the Emmy robots also never really wear themselves thin because they're always changing and adding more to the chase, the cat and mouse kind of chase game of the robots. So I just think it was so cool. Going back to the map design, this is another area where the inclusion of the Emmy robots was done perfectly, because the game in so many ways forces you both in and out of these Emmy zones. And you never want to go in there. You're always like, damn it, that's an Emmy door, and I know that I can look at the map and see I need to go through here to get to this other place to do that, and so I have to avoid it because I'm not yet at the point where I can get the Omega Cannon and destroy it. And, it's really a testament to the overall design of the map and the world that they make you go in and out of the Emmy zones several times in each area where there is one until you finally are able to actually defeat it. And you're trying your best to just make it to your next safe door so you can pop out and then pop back in. And you're just bobbing and weaving and ducking in and out of these Emmy zones because the forward motion, the forward momentum of your progress basically demands you do so. And they know what they're asking the player to do. They know how dreadful and tension-filled it is, and they're basically just toying with us. And I think it's fantastic because it means this dread concept they've been sitting on for 15 or some odd years, they knew what they were doing the whole time. And now we've seen it to fruition, and it's great. The boss battles, for the most part, are also very, very good. They're not the best I've seen in the Metroid franchise, but I would say they rest somewhere in the middle compared to the best bosses in the franchise and maybe the least best bosses in the franchise. The Emmy robots kind of count as bosses in and of themselves, and they have a unique kind of way you go about them, so it's tough to really count them in the same conversation. Then there's just another small handful, a smattering of some bigger, typical kind of Metroid bosses, like your big monsters and things that I won't spoil any more than just to say that. And while there maybe isn't as many of them as I would have liked, I will say that the ones you do fight are awesome. They're a ton of fun. It's very difficult. This game does have a strong challenge to it, which I'm very happy to report, both in terms of just the Emmy robots, traversing the world, and then some of the boss fights. Like, it's definitely challenging, and I think that the boss fights sum that up perfectly, but they're also designed so that all you have to do is be good at the game, be good at controlling Samus and using all of the available moves you've acquired up until that point, and then just learning a couple of patterns of the bosses. And it's not that it becomes easy to beat the bosses, but you become empowered to do so because the design is so well implemented. So I just think it's another area where they just knocked that out of the park. Now, talking about the story in the non-spoiler part of this video is going to be hard, so I'm not going to do it much other than to say it's so good. It's so good, and without spoiling, in so many ways, what they do with it, and we've seen like a living Chozo in the trailer and stuff, so obviously there's a Chozo element to the story, and we've seen the Chozo warrior antagonist in one of the trailers, so we know about that going into this game. Those two characters and the circumstances around them and the way they delivered in this game, man, it's good. I'm almost getting chills thinking about how good it is, and I can't talk about that more in this part, but I'll just say it's great. If you've been following my channel, watching some of my videos, my discussions, my theories, all sorts of different things, I'm just going to say that. If you've been watching my channel, you might know some things. And I'm pretty proud to say that I feel like I had a pretty good read on what was possible and where they almost for sure had to take the story of Metroid Dread. And more important than the story of Metroid Dread, where they have to take Samus. Because I'm that guy, okay? I will be that Metroid fan who, yes, I love the games, the locations, the music, and the story. But I also love Samus, okay? And to me, that really started with Metroid Prime and then also Metroid Prime 3. And I started to more than just like, oh, I love being this badass chick that's a bounty hunter fighting monsters. I really, around that era, started to care just about the person and the woman in the suit and her well-being and her journey and what she's learning, which is why Other M didn't offend me. I actually wanted the stuff that Other M did, and I liked the direction they went in most parts. And so what they do with the story, it's great. As far as any negatives, I mean, there really aren't many. It's a very lengthy media experience. You might be seeing people beating it in 6 to 7 hours, but that's people I would think forcing it, skipping things, and maybe people who just aren't taking their time. But even if you do that, it feels like it took you 20 hours to do because there's just so much in this game and the world map keeps getting bigger and bigger. But I will say that there is one world map related issue I have, and that's that the actual map screen itself, to me, is maybe not the best design. I don't know if my color blindness is affecting this at all or not. Maybe, maybe not. I can't really say. I can just say that I think that the way the map screen is designed, It's pretty confusing. It's pretty overwhelming. The kind of diagrammy CAD drawing nature that they went for, it's not that it doesn't work, but it takes real getting used to. And even up until the very end, I would pause it, I'd pull up the map, try to understand where I'm at and where I want to go, and I'd have to do so much zooming in to like understand just the room I'm in, because when you're looking at it from a distance, you just don't know, man. And I mean, you know, every map screen gives us a zoom, and this is no different, but I think there's something to be said for the initial design of the map wasn't maybe the most clear, and maybe they could have refined it one or two more times before it made it into the final product. Not game-breaking, but a slight nuisance really early on in the game for me. Also, I have to talk about the music. It's a little disappointing for me to report that the music to me is not one of the standouts. It's probably one of the few weaker parts to the game. And I say that partly because the Metroid franchise is known for having great music, you know? There's this laundry list of things that Metroid is known for doing really, really well. And high on that list is the music. And while they did go for some atmospheric kind of ambiance with some of the tunes and some of the locations, and some of it's pretty good, there's nothing that truly stands out to me, and some of it's even kind of boring, and didn't make me feel the same kind of immersion that some of the music in Metroid Primes 1 and 2 did, or Super Metroid did, or even Other M. Although, to be fair, Other M didn't really have music tracks, more just ambient noises, but I think it worked a little bit better in that game than some of the stuff they do in Dread. So, again, it doesn't ruin the game, it's just one of those things that Metroid is known for that they didn't quite nail with Metroid Dread. And so now we're moving on from the spoiler-free stuff. We're moving into spoiler territory for a couple of minutes here just to wrap up this first video that I'm making after completing the game, because I have many more to come. So, if you haven't beaten it, don't watch anymore. We're going into spoilers. You ready? 3, 2, 1. Holy shit, I was right. I cannot believe, you guys, that when I made this video weeks after Metroid Dread was announced at E3 about my own personal theory, and I didn't see anyone else put this out there, other than people agreeing with me in the comments, I made this video theorizing that there's a chance if Metroid Dread, which is Metroid 5, is meant to end the story and this part of the Metroid saga, conclude the journey of Samus and her intertwined fates with the Metroids the way they told us, that maybe we would see Samus somehow become the last living Metroid in the galaxy. If you happen to see that theory video that I made, I discussed that my basis for that was the fact that in Metroid Fusion, the game that directly precedes, of course, Metroid Dread, in that game, she becomes infected with the X-Parasite, and in order to save her life, they have to inject her with a newly created Metroid DNA vaccine, which saves her and makes her suit this weird organic thing, and she's immune to the X-Parasite, but she's susceptible to cold because the Metroids are, and this whole thing, and it's a great part of the story of Metroid Fusion and Samus's journey throughout it. And I was like, you know, if you're going to end the story between Metroids 1 through 5, given all of the events in Metroid Fusion, what if we just learn that Samus, because of the Metroid DNA vaccine, becomes the last Metroid? It's told to us that Samus has already wiped out all of the living Metroids in the galaxy. And they've confirmed that, yes, Metroid Fusion, or Metroid Dread, sorry, ends the story, but that they're already working on the next chapters in the next games. So it's like, well, how do you continue to call the franchise Metroid if they're all extinct? To me, the solution was Samus becomes the last Metroid, in a sense. And sure enough, you've played the game, you've beaten the game, you've learned that that is exactly what the Adam AI computer, who turns out to be Ravenbeak, tells her, that you are a Metroid. The Metroid DNA has changed and transformed something within you. You have now become a Metroid. You are basically the last Metroid, which is what makes you valuable to the evil Chozo and the X-Parasite and to Ravenbeak and all that stuff. And I was like, whoa! I was so proud and happy with myself for being right, while at the same time being blown away that this is where the story went. To me, it is so poetic, it is so perfect if you're going to end the Metroid story. Beyond that, the other huge part to the story of Metroid Dread is the fact that we've finally had the Chozo play a role in a Metroid game front and center. And that is such a huge deal for so many reasons, guys. I mean, you saw me make like 5 videos over the past few months all about the Chozo, why I care about them, what their impact to Samus and the story is, and why I think they would be important in Metroid Dread. And now I'm going to have to sit on these revelations from this game for a couple of days and a couple of weeks. I'm going to have to revisit them by playing the game again. I'm going to have to kind of just think on it and put the pieces together more. Again, this is very fresh. I played the game one time 2 hours before I recorded this video. These cutscenes, these revelations, the names of the Thoha and the Makin tribe, and the revelation that that's the blood DNA that actually went into Samus to make her part Chozo, and all that stuff. It's so fresh, okay? These conversations will be different and better weeks, months, and years down the road. But while it's fresh, I can say that I loved bringing the Chozo into play. I was also correct, not only about the fact that this game was not spoiled in the marketing, but the fact that the living Chozo we saw in the trailers initially was a good, friendly Chozo. Okay, and we meet that Chozo named Light Robe, and it has a conversation in the Chozo language with Samus. And one of the best parts of the game is when Samus speaks Chozo back to Light Robe, and so many amazing things happen. We then, of course, see Ravenbeak in the incredible final battle call Samus his daughter, because it is the Makin tribe's DNA combined with the Thoho tribe's DNA that went into Samus, so that she's basically like the Chozo daughter of both tribes. And all of this stuff, these tribe names, these Chozo titles, this is all new as of Metroid Dread, right? So that's how mind-blowing and impactful and important the story of this game is, and how they chose to direct these cutscenes. And so I'm going to save the rest for deep dives in a future video, but needless to say, it's everything I could have hoped for to wrap up this game. I loved it to death. They knocked it out of the park. So the quick summary here, you guys, this game is amazing. More than exceeded my expectations, more than worth the 19-year wait. This game has changed the course of Metroid forever going forward in a positive way. One of the many conversations I'll continue to have with you guys over the next couple of weeks and months now that we've all played this game, before we start looking ahead to Metroid Prime 4. I think that I could say, I don't know, we're so close to the game. It's probably my second favorite Metroid game of all time. It's not my favorite. I can't yet say it's better than Metroid Prime to me personally. And I am a sucker to my own nostalgia, so time and distance away from a game to me in many ways can make it better sometimes. Could make it worse, could make it better. And so, you know, I've got my ranking where Prime is my favorite, and then right behind that is like a 3-way tie between like Super Metroid and Zero Mission and Prime 2. But I think I would put Dread between that, so I think I'm going to call it my second favorite Metroid game ever made currently. And if I was going to delve into the realm of giving a review score for this game, boy, this is risky for me. This isn't something I do. You guys know I'm not like a game reviewer. I don't have a professional approach to this. You know, how I rate games is more as a fan. I'm not always considering the most normal, critical kind of lens of reviewing a game. It's just not what I put myself on YouTube to do. But as a fan, reviewing Metroid Dread as a fan, and right now, while it's 2 hours fresh in my mind, and I think it's my second favorite Metroid game of all time, maybe my second favorite video game of all time, clearly it's pretty high. I don't know. So I'm going to give it a pretty high score. I think I'm going to say currently a 9.7. I'm going to say 9.7. I kind of want to go 9.8, but I'm not going to get too crazy. I don't know. I need to play it again, and I need to see how I feel after a couple of months and after a couple of years. But most importantly is the fact that this game is incredible. It delivers on everything we could possibly have asked for. Thank you to Mercury Steam. Thank you to Nintendo for making this game and putting so much love and care into it. You did us Metroid fans justice with this game, and it makes us so happy and excited for the future of the franchise and the future of Samus as a character, because I want to see where her journey continues to go, starting with Metroid Prime 4 and beyond. So, I think I can confidently say this is my review and first impressions. Metroid Dread completed one time, loved it to death, one of the best games I've ever played. So now that you've heard my thoughts, I want to hear yours. Do you agree with my sentiments? Did you find something different to like or dislike about it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you think it's just okay? Whatever you think, talk about it below. What a time to be alive. Man, this is exciting. So, with that being said, you guys, this video is officially a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in. This is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.